Hello, everyone, and welcome to the cosmic weather for October. I do apologize for it being a few days on the later side, but I was really wrestling with how I wanted to do this cosmic weather, actually kind of going forward and also in terms of just how to deliver the information. I've been pretty technical in previous videos, and I'm still going to mention some dates that are tied to the technicality of the astrology, but I think what I wanted to really try to do was just speak to everyone in a more organic and in the moment kind of way. I'm also choosing to do this just preceding the full moon. It's going to be a full moon in Aries today when this is being recorded. It will be at 11:47 p.m. my time tonight, and it will be in Aries, which is my sun sign. So maybe there's also a little bit of trying to find a maverick or an authentic way to do these videos. It's always a bit of an experimentation process to figure out what really is the way that each of us, if we're going to be doing something like this in terms of presenting information, want to deliver it in a particular way. And I've never been particularly fond of, I guess, over preparing or setting it up in a way that has this sort of polished. I kind of like just this idea of talking to you. And I think from previous videos, if you've watched any of the previous videos, or if you decide to go back and watch a previous video just to see what the difference might be between this video and the videos I've done before, if you're new to the channel, certainly I think you'll be able to see that I want to do something that's more engaging, trying to figure out how to do that engaging part, but also recognize that astrologically right now, it's a very volatile time. I've talked in previous videos about a common theme, which I'll just briefly mention because it shapes everything that we're in a way dealing with. Because from an astrological standpoint, it's about these large cycles that we're tied to, and we have three major cycles that are happening that historically have been very, very challenging cycles for the United States and by extension the world. These cycles involve Uranus being in Taurus and Gemini, which is currently moving between those two signs. And the last time it was moving between those two signs was the Great Depression and World War II. The previous time before that was the Civil War, and the previous time before that was the Revolutionary War. So, we have some really powerful energy that's got a historical precedents that were quite easily identifiable. And then we have also Neptune moving between Pisces and Aries. In fact, it's getting ready to go back into Pisces on October 22nd. That'll be one of the key movements of October is that it returns to Pisces, which is the sign it rules and where it will spend time until January 24th, 25th of 2026. And that period of time was, as I said, civil war. And so there's this real wrestling with competing belief systems out in the world and attitudes that are not really reconcilable. It's definitely an energy of someone has to win and someone has to lose. I think there's that strong theme that's out there. Do I think that's how it has to be? Absolutely not. But that's the energy that we have as a historical cycle to look back to. And then Pluto, which is actually going to go direct on October the 14th, is in Aquarius right now. And last time it was in Capricorn Aquarius was the time of the Revolutionary War, really the creation of the United States, and then the United States kind of coming into what it was going to start becoming in terms of its role in the world and as a new nation and so forth. So certainly to reiterate, and I think that's another part of I think a little bit of delay in delivering this particular cosmic weather is that the liminal state is very much in play. And what I mean by liminal state, it's this in between where we've left something behind, but we haven't arrived yet where we need to be. And I use that we on the global scale, but I also use it on the personal scale in my own personal life and the people that I consult with. Everyone's in sort of a transition, looking to move into the next thing, or they're waiting to see what the world is going to perhaps settle into because it will eventually settle into it. I will add my name to the hat of people who've mentioned a book by Neil Howe, which is The Fourth Turning. And he recently did an update to that. The Fourth Turning is now. And that has to do with a cycle that he observed in American history. So it is somewhat specific to American history, but not entirely. That there is four generations, and these generations sort of map out the way you would think about the seasons. And we are currently in the fourth turning, which is a winter season, and this is when very significant difficulties arise, mainly economic, that then have an effect on the society and the social, and that's what we're, I think, largely seeing. And so the challenge is how to deliver this information and see the astrological patterns and know that to a certain extent we're really still very much in the middle of it. And I think that was another bit of my struggle in trying to think about this particular cosmic weather is that it does have a bit of a feel similar to the previous cosmic weathers. And I feel like until energy shifts or until the external hits a certain threshold, which astrologically speaking is really not supposed to happen, um, probably until the end of 2026 and sometime in 2027, which I know those time frames are really difficult. I have difficulty saying it as well as thinking about it. But we truly are in the middle of vast changes. Interestingly enough, rapid change on one hand, and then very slow change on another. And I've been saying from time to time that it seems like the days are slow, but the months are fast. We're already in October, and the energy is continuing to be in a flurry of different states of acceleration and redirection and so forth. And so I've been trying to think, how to make this helpful to people and really take it from not only a global level but down to a personal level. And a lot of it is trying to find tools and techniques for grounding, tools and techniques for being patient, tools and techniques for acknowledging that there can be a lot of fear or worry or concern. I certainly sometimes feel like the roller coaster of emotions are going up and down just on a daily basis, where I have moments in terms of what I do as a spiritual advisor and my own story of, yes, I know what's going on. I can see it. I can advise people in an effective way. And then there are moments where it's like, wow, this is really a lot. I mean, this is some very big transformational energy. So I think what I'm trying to figure out how to deliver in this message and hopefully messages going forward is in a way tied to the full moon in Aries, which is about being honest. Honest not in a way of Pollyanna, like everything's going to be turning out great, or not honest in the sense of doom, like this is the end of the world. I think there's a play of energy that is both amazing. There are amazing things that are happening, and there's a lot of play of energy where there's bills that are coming due in the sense that we've really allowed things to sort of steamroll into the amount of debt that the nation has, the amount of debt that the world has, the economic pressures that we're going to be facing with a lot of change, the arrival of AI, its impact. So there's a lot that is definitely being activated. And so in terms of this particular cosmic weather going into October, I am hopeful that the shift of Pluto going direct will be beneficial because, as it turns out right now, and again, speaking in sort of astrological technical terms, all of the outer points are currently retrograde. So Saturn, Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, as of today, everything is retrograde. Now, Saturn has moved back into Pisces. Neptune will go back into Pisces on October 22nd. That means that there's going to be sort of in a way, a final period of reflection that has to do with whatever vision we think our personal stories are trying to achieve. What vision we think that the world or the world we live in was and is now changing, and that when we get to both Saturn and Neptune being in Aries, which will be in the beginning of 2026, it will definitely be a kind of energy that's like, wow, this is what we have to deal with. We have things that we now have to realize are coming into shape a particular way, and these impacts and these choices, whether it's policies with our government or whether it's our own efforts to figure out what we want our story to be going forward, that energy of the beginning of the year is going to be very much a this is what we've got. How do we deal with what we've got? The visions that we have. This return to Pisces energy is a chance to revisit all of that and also release it. I mean, a big part of Neptune's work in Pisces and Neptune's work just in general is surrender and allowing things to unfold and figure out where you are in your own story, that you have the ability to affect things and where you don't have the ability to affect things, and you have to wait. I mean, there's a lot of also with retrograde energies, just waiting to see what transpires. And so it feels right to do this video on the full moon and to do it with Aries in mind. And then the next couple of, sort of big astrological events will be the new moon, which will be in Libra, which is going to ask us to really think about our relationships. Libra is the sign of relationship. It's also the sign associated with the law and legal matters and the question of, what are we doing in our society with regard to legal matters, whether they're personal to us or whether we're looking at how the law is being handled on a larger scale, maybe a community scale, maybe a statewide scale, maybe a national scale. And then right after that, we'll have that Neptunian energy going back into Pisces. But preceding that, the date of October 14th, where Pluto goes direct, I'm hopeful, and I do also recognize that when energy changes into direct motion, it can dislodge things. If things feel stuck, like really feel stuck in a lot of ways, look to the 14th, 15th, 16th as moments where whatever is most stuck for you, that transformational energy will begin to go forward and things will begin to potentially unstick. And hopefully that will be the way the energy will, I mean, that is how the energy will work. It will be a matter of how we're set up for that, if you will. And some of it will also not matter how we're set up for it. It'll do its thing and apply. For myself, that will happen in the area of my chart that deals with my foundations. So I'm interested in seeing how that shifts in that area that is my foundational energy. It's my fourth house in my chart. So, wherever Pluto might be in your chart would be where it's going to be, having been in a review process and looking at things from that retrograde perspective and then going into a direct process. And this could also certainly play on all levels. And so for the United States, the last time that Pluto was in Aquarius was really that period of time after the United States' creation. So in a lot of ways, the United States is rebirthing itself right now. And what that's going to start to take shape, we'll get more and more of a sense of that, especially with direct motion. And Pluto getting a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper into Aquarius because it's just at the very beginning of the sign. It's right at that 0 degrees to 1 degree mark. It did not go back with the retrograde into Capricorn. It actually left Capricorn permanently on November the 19th, 2024. So we now have Pluto in Capricorn, Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years until 2044. But we do have direct motion happening this month, and I think that's going to be something that if you're wanting to sort of pay attention to when maybe there's something you want to try to activate, there's something you want to try to engage, or maybe you're just waiting for an observation of a shift. Hopefully that will be the period of time that it will start to shift and we'll start to feel some forward motion. And then as the rest of the year progresses, other points will start to go direct. And then by the time we get to the beginning of next year and really get into the first couple months of the year, all of these points that are currently retrograde will go direct. It will actually be Jupiter that's currently direct that will go retrograde at the beginning of next year. So that will be a bit of a shift. And Jupiter is moving its way through Cancer right now. So it is this question of who do we connect with that supports us? Who are the people that are either natural family or the family that we've created? And how do we, during this period of Jupiter moving through Cancer, how do we, expand those connections or lean into those connections or make sure that we are touching those connections? So I think in terms of the larger cosmic weather, which is the fact that we have several points this year, three of them that are moving back and forth between signs, is really also creating the uncertainty. And so I can't offer anything more clear than that things are uncertain and going to remain so until this back and forth is completed. Now, for Neptune and Pisces, it's been a back and forth between Aries. For Neptune and Saturn, it's been a back and forth between Pisces and Aries. They will be in Aries and stay in Aries after the beginning of the new year. So if you want to mark some dates again on your calendar, for Neptune, that would be the 24th, 25th of January, and for Saturn, it will be the 14th, 13th, 14th of February, so right around Valentine's Day. Uranus is currently doing a back and forth, but it's not going to settle into the next sign, which will be Gemini. It's moving between Taurus and Gemini. It won't settle into Gemini until April 25th, 26th of 2026. Now, at that point, we will have four of the points done with their transition. So Pluto was the first one to complete it. And then it will be Neptune that will be done, then it will be Saturn, and then it will be Uranus. The last one that's doing a back and forth, and it will do the back and forth next year, will be Chiron, which is why to me it feels like we're not going to feel a little bit more towards settled and less uncertain until sometime in 2027. And if I'm being, kind of just really honest, I think that we're looking at 2028 for sort of what the world will settle into. And this would sort of fit with the idea of this fourth turning, of this cycle of Uranus, where things happen and there has to be enough time for the transition, and it's slow. It's just not immediate. And I think in our world of speed, it's very disconcerting that we can't feel settled like we would like to, because the unsettling is really a very long process. In fact, I originally talked about it back in January of 2020, and I presented it as a 10-year span. And I've said this in other videos where when we think of like the Great Depression, the general thought is that specific date in 1929 when the market crashed. But really, the Depression ran for easily 10 years after that. It was up until the war started that it started to shake loose. It was already, things were being done to try to alleviate it. In fact, in 1935, the Social Security Act was created. In 1938, the first check was actually paid out. So, it's a long period of time. So I guess what I'm wondering about this video in terms of reaching out to you is to say that the times are very challenging, and that I do believe that what I do in terms of, if you haven't had your chart done or you want to look at your chart and you want to look at it in depth, this is a great time to do it. It's a great time to really connect with spirituality, because it's really during these periods of intense transformation that spirituality can be the most helpful to us. I absolutely believe that. And so for me, the thought I'm having going forward and doing videos is really to try to just let people know that if you're feeling that things are really kind of, I don't know, crazy, insane, going through a lot of just volatility, it's true. And the best we can do is take it day to day, use tools that we have. I certainly have spoken about in other videos doing grounding work, which I do on a daily basis, finding meditation that can help you out, talking to people that you feel you can talk to and trust, seeking out professionals who can do work that you feel like you need to help you in a moment of decision making, or maybe a moment of crisis, or whatever it might be. So I do think that this month will continue the themes of the previous months. I do also think that the following months, November and December, will continue the themes, and that it will be 2026 when we start to see it. But within each month, there are some shifts. So to me, the four that I want to emphasize is the one today, which is the full moon in Aries. So even if you see this video after the full moon, realize that that full moon in Aries is about all of us having an honest conversation with ourselves on an emotional level. And what does that honesty look like as an observer, as someone that can go, wow, this is really how my life is working. These are the things that I have to deal with. These are the relationships that I need to work on or release, whatever it might be. And then the next significant date would be October 14th, which is Pluto going direct. And then October 21st is when we have the new moon in Libra, which again, always new moons, full moons represent moments of shift and focused on those signs. And Libra is going to be about our relationship. So there's a big relationship theme for October. And then the 22nd, Neptune will go out of Aries and back into Pisces. And it's really going to represent a review of our beliefs, a real deep final review of the beliefs we've held and the beliefs we're seeing take shape out in the world, and how they are interacting with one another. Because, of course, there are competing beliefs, there are competing narratives, and so forth. So I would say with this particular month, some work on, of course, understanding the self with the Aries full moon, and then thinking about out of that, how does that work with your relationships with the new moon in Libra, but also feeling this shift of Pluto where there's hopefully going to be, I do think, energy that feels like it moves forward because it will be. That's what will happen. But then we'll get that shift back into Pisces with Neptune, which will be in the sign that it rules. And I do think we're going to have a lot of sort of deep surrender work that we're going to have to do on an individual level, and we're going to have to look and see what the world is doing. So I hope this approach strikes a chord. This is how I think I'm going to try to go forward rather than referencing notes and trying to be super technical. I think I'd like to just be able to kind of converse with you in a way. So, again, do the best to take care of yourself and the people that are closest to you. Realize there's a lot of forces out there right now that have to come into their own alignment. Until they do, we're sort of at the mercy. This is also a Neptunian theme, especially when it goes back into Pisces. We're at the mercy of those energies until we see how they affect our lives or how they affect the world around us. And always just take good care. Thank you.